Alright, welcome to the second part of this tutorial, or whatever this is. I have my model here in Substance, and I'm jumping right in, adding some of the basic default skin materials that Substance comes with. And I'm going to use color in only one of them, just so I don't have to tweak it in each one. And I'm mainly using these to get some of that normal detail and roughness as well. So everything else is set up to just roughness and normal, apart from the bottom layer. And here I am actually trying to decide which one should be the bottom layer. And I've just added black masks to all of them, and I'm painting them in where I think they should go. So cheeks on the cheeks, nose tip on the nose tip, and so forth. And I'm using triplanar projection on all of them, because the UVs are a bit whack. Now I'm starting to add some of the color information, adding in the lips, going into UV view just to get the inside of the mouth. And teeth next. You can see my bakes have a bit of a problem there. I'll fix that later. So you can see I set the opacity quite low on the lips, and I'm adding some more of the basic materials that I want, just using the bronze smart material there. And here I'm adding some eye stuff, so just darkening the eyes and setting that quite low as well on the opacity. And a similar thing here, adding the subdermal skin tones. And again, doing them really intensely at first, and then I can always take down the layer's opacity later, like so. There you can see I've added some just quick smart materials to the clothing. Here I'm adding some basic noise. I believe this is gonna be just the color layer. Trying to fix my tablet there. But yeah, just some really quick, I think that's like clouds or something. Tweaking things in the subdermal color layer a little bit. Adding the stubble with a fill layer. That's just with the height going down a little bit, and quite roughness and a dark color, and using the spatter brush. And there's a layer eloquent named paint, and that's where I'm going to do most of my just painting of the various skin tones around the face. So adding a bit more to the lips and nose as well. Doing the roughness in the same layer, although really I should just stick to color, but it ends up being fine. So I made the lips a little bit glossier, and the ears as well. And here I'm erasing a bunch. Adding red to the edges of the nose. Do you call those the edges of the nose? I don't even know. But yeah, adding some red there, and then just going back and forth until I get something that I like. Adding some red to the inside of the eyes. This ends up being a bit too red, but whatever. And you can see me looking at the roughness there as well, making the insides of the eyes glossy. Adding some more red there under the eyes. Adding more glossiness to the ears, though that ends up being a bit too much. Here I'm experimenting with some different stuff. I decided to add a veins layer, tends to be pretty helpful. So just using the veins brush, adding red all over, get a really subtle veins effect once the opacity is toned down, like that. There I'm adding some color to the molds, and I think I'm gonna add a couple of more molds as well. And then adding some red to the scars. These kinds of scars are probably old and they should be white, but I tend to like the look of these red ones better. Adding some blue to the veins. I think I add like another vein there somewhere. Darkening up the chest area. I end up not really caring about that part. I could have added some fake chest hair or something there. Adding in a fill layer with just the AO in the base color and tweaking the levels until it's reddish. That honestly is one of the major things that gives my models the look that they have, is using quite an intense AO overlay, which is obviously not realistic, but yeah. Adding some more roughness information, mostly just making things more glossy around the cheeks and the nose, as well as some just more general noise everywhere. And I think I'm just pretty much picking those brushes that I use randomly there, just something that looks decent. Here I'm doing a quick block out of the eyes, until I notice that the UVs on there are screwed, so I need to go in and fix those first. Right there I just tested out some color profiles, but I decided not to use them here. I think this is where I fixed the eyes, or the UVs on the eyes. And honestly, I mean, the eyes end up being pretty rough here. I should have done a better job on them. Probably done I have some eyes somewhere in a Blender file that I could have just used, but I end up just hand painting. So yeah, tiny bit of detail. Nothing super special here. So here's a spots layer. Just playing around with different brushes, and then I end up erasing most of this, obviously. I guess this would be kind of like liver spots or whatever, or just random general noise. You can see me there just erasing almost all of it, but a little bit remains. That's kind of the thing with texturing, at least this is what I always was taught. You add stuff and then you remove a little bit, or you remove most of it so that a little bit remains, and you just layer detail on top of detail until you get something that looks somewhat realistic. Although I wouldn't exactly call this sculpt realistic, but yeah, I guess it's a semi-realistic texturing style. Adding some more red around the ears. And just generally going across areas that I think need some more attention. And this is all still in the spots layer. Or actually here I'm adding another one. I'm just doing some... Don't really know what I'd call this, just more noise around the eyes, darkening them a little bit more. And again I end up erasing most of this. But a little bit remains, and I think it adds a little bit more something, a bit more oomph. Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm doing this on a normal layer, but I could have just as well done that bit on the cheeks and chin, just on the spots layer, because I think it's basically pretty much the same color and everything. Tweaking the veins layer a bit more. You can see there's some screwed up geometry in the lip there, which I end up fixing later. Adding some more red on the inside of the mouth, or super dark red I suppose. And I think, yeah, this is where I do my first test export. Doing stupid stuff, which I revert. Now I'm doing a export. And setting things up in Blender, and you can see I've added some hair in Blender as well. And that's just with the hair tool add-on, which you can find on Google, just googling hair tool Blender or something. But yeah, I'm only exporting the textures that I know I'll need, so it's pretty much just color, roughness and normal, and then scattering, which I realized at this point that I had forgotten, so I add it back. And tweak it a bit with levels. And because my project's in DirectX format, I need to invert the green channel for the normal map. And just a basic color ramp for the subsurface scattering. Adding the clothes textures here. At this point, or from this point on, it's pretty much just a process of looking at it here in Blender and then tweaking things until it looks good. So there's a lot of back and forth between Substance and Blender. Adding in the eyes here. And I try to recreate a 2-layer eye setup from memory, and then I can't remember how to do it. So I end up just appending the lenses from another project. Like that. Starting to add a bit of lighting here. From this, or before this, it was just the HDR. But I toned down the HDR a lot and added some lighting. I set up the camera there, and I'm making the eyes look at the camera, at least vaguely. I don't think they're really spot on yet. Just playing with lighting, playing with the hair shader. You can see the lighting that I'm going for is kind of artificial. A cool yellow, and then I tried a pink, but it didn't really work. So I went with the cyan instead. But the yellow is like super artificial. At least that's what I was going for. Kind of like a, I don't know, a cheap lamp or something. And here I'm adding the eyebrows. I tried a few different things, and I decided I would just add them in the texture and not worry about hair cards. So I have one layer where I sketch out the basic shape, and then another layer where I just add all the strands, and they're just brown and then some height information, and then I do a levels on the height to get it to look a bit better. And then erase most of the base layer. And here I try adding some extra height to give the eyebrows more shape, but it doesn't really end up looking good. And tweaking some more stuff. I'm trying out a mustache, don't really like it. More exporting, importing, tweaking. If you're wondering, this was a separate session, that's why I didn't have Blender open. Yeah, there I decided to just get rid of the extra height. Added some eyelashes as well, tweaked the hair a bit. I think this is where I add some darker hair tone underneath the hair cards just to blend them a little bit more. It does not end up doing much, honestly. I could have darkened it more, or I don't know, tweaked the hair cards to blend a bit better with the scalp. Tweaking the hair cards. You can see a hair tool makes working with them pretty darn easy. It's just a bunch of splines. And the proportional editing tool there is super helpful. Here I'm trying adding some smaller strands of hair just to break up the silhouette of those cards against the forehead. Trying out some different things with lighting. And all I really end up doing is adding a small white light, or actually yellow light, there next to the eye so that I get more of a specular from it. And here I decided he needs a little bit more something, so I'm gonna add a gold chain around his neck. Or bronze actually, because I'm using a bronze material. So yeah, just modeling a single loop pretty roughly, and using an array and a curve modifier to put it around his neck. You can see I tried either putting it on the outside of his collar or against the skin. I end up going against the skin. Just using the twist functionality in the curve there. Doing quick UVs, and because I already have some of the correct material or texture on the earring, that's what I just end up using, the same tiny bit of texture. Using a more suitable material for the vest there. As you can see, these clothes are super low effort, since they're not really the focus of it. And I think at this point we are almost done. Clicking the eyes a little more, and preparing for a final render. Not that, I mean this is EV, so the render is just real time, right? But yeah. And of course I had the high poly lurking underneath, so it rendered that as well. But there we go. Couple of renders, and it's done. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this quick tutorial series. And leave a comment if you'd like to see more of this or less of this, if you hated it, if you loved it,